What is going on, y'all? What is going on, y'all? What is going on, y'all? It is the Caveman back at it again with the Cave. Do you want the easy, the medium, or the hard?
I told myself coming on, I'm taking all the hards.
You what?
Just give me the hard question.
30.
God, I forgot about the wager. I would have played this game completely different.
It's not the Ravens.
Who is it? Who is it?
It is actually the Eagles.
Oh, Jalen Hurts!
Yeah, Shirley had 105. Yep.
I'll wager a 30 point.
It's going to be hard for you to blow this. Respective draft classes, who was selected higher, Aaron Rodgers or Brett Favre?
Rodgers.
What is going on, y'all? It is the Caveman back at it again with the Cave every Tuesday nights, now at a new time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard. Used to be at 9:30. We're getting going a little bit earlier nowadays, and thank God, because it was a little bit tiring doing it so late. But nevertheless, we're kicking it off on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, wherever you can find the Caveman. You're going to find the Cave Tuesday nights, and I'm very excited to bring on another very special guest. We have a lot of conversation to cover. It's going to be a very good show, and I'm excited to welcome Glenn on tonight. Glenn, thank you for taking the time, man. It's going to be a great time.
Yeah, no problem. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course, man. There's, week 5 was insane. Every single week there's been, a spoon-fed amount of, information to talk about and so much to cover. And we're going to have a good time making sure we get around to it all. And that's going to bring us into our first segment. And that is just simply the guest spotlight. If you're not sure who Glenn is, well, you better get to know him pretty damn quickly. Glenn Goodberry is a part of the Buffalo on the Brain apparel. I think you're the owner, right? Are you the guy that starts it? Just to get a little more insight.
Yep, that's correct. Between my brother and I, you got him listed on there, Joe Goodberry. He does a Bengals on the Brain, and I do a Buffalo on the Brain. And we, facilitate and orchestrate getting apparel, getting the brand out there, creating genuine, unique designs on our own, and trying to get it out there for the fans.
Yeah, and I mean, he's got a fantastic clothing line, apparel brand on his website that's going to be in the description below if you want to check that out. But he also does giveaways. He does giveaways of the sort all the time. He did one right before the show. He started it yesterday. I think he did you did the winner right before, I think. Who was it, Jim? Some guy named Jim or Tim, if I remember correctly.
It was Jim. I did do the winner right before 7 o'clock. He hasn't reached out to me yet, but I'll give him some time.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll definitely get back to you. But yeah, I mean, this is the kind of stuff that Glenn is all about, and he's definitely building a fantastic thing with his brother on Buffalo on the Brain. And, I think this was a pretty good hashtag if you hadn't started it already. The Goodberry giveaway. Did you like that one? Was it corny? Is this something you've had in mind yet?
No, I have not. I like that. I thought that was pretty good. I was like, oh, that's nice. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, well, the Goodberry giveaway, so be sure you're checking him out on all the socials. Be sure you're checking out his website, all of the apparel that the Goodberries have going on. But let's get right into the conversation that we have tonight, because there is plenty to cover after week number 5. Be sure you guys are popping in. Pokemon, thank you for showing up like you always do. Kim, do the same. If you guys are in the comment section, be sure you're leaving your thoughts, saying hello, getting involved, because this is just as a show with the two of us as it is with you guys. So be sure you're commenting, leaving any thoughts you may have. All right, let's get on with things here, starting with the recent events. The first recent events topic that I want to touch on happened, I think it was yesterday. Matt Rule was officially fired by the Carolina Panthers after what I believe was a 1-4 start. Matt Rule hasn't been the guy for the Panthers, and it's been pretty evident over the last, I think, 2 or 3 years now that he's been the head coach. Now that the Carolina Panthers are under new staff, they also fired their defensive coordinator. Do you think there's some, light at the end of the tunnel for this team, in terms of 2022 for the last, 11 or so games?
What I think by doing this, maybe they get a little inspiration, but I don't think there's much light at the end of the tunnel right now for the Panthers. They got to go through an entire coaching search probably after this interim coach did they name somebody yet? I haven't noticed if they've named anybody. It looks like they might want to blow this thing up a little bit here in the rumors about Christian McCaffrey possibly, Buffalo maybe inquiring about him, dropping off some of those players that they might still be able to get something in return for. But I don't currently see the Baker Mayfield thing. He just looks a little bottled up. He doesn't look comfortable at all. It just doesn't seem like anything is really going right in Carolina, and they had to let their coach go. He's got a losing record. He's just not, he doesn't seem like a good fit. It just, I don't know. It seems sad, but hopefully they can turn it around because I don't hate the Panthers. They've got, the Buffalo lineage runs through them, right? What we got going on right now. And, I've never had a reason to really hate that franchise. So hopefully it turn around.
Yeah, I mean, I feel the same way. I've always felt like the Carolina Panthers, chiming in, Steve Wilkes is who they hired as is the interim head coach as of right now. But nevertheless, yeah, I mean, I feel the same way. I've never had any ill will toward the Carolina Panthers, as you mentioned. We have a lot of connection to the Panthers. There was kind of a running joke earlier in the tenure of Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane of us acquiring these stragglers from the Carolina Panthers. We're doing a lot of business with the Panthers. And it seemed like, oh, wow, we added another player. Where is he from? Oh, of course, the Carolina Panthers, because they're familiar with the organization. There's obviously a lot of chemistry there. So I do hope that the Carolina Panthers are able to find some light at the end of the tunnel. But like you mentioned, there's just not much positivity going on there at the moment. It's going to really be on Steve Wilkes to turn that ship around. Baker Mayfield's supposed to miss the next 2 or 3 weeks with that ankle sprain, so they're going to be starting PJ Walker. That's not necessarily a good sign, but you touched on the Christian McCaffrey thing. I know DJ Moore is going to be a very hot commodity amongst the rest of the NFL, but that's something I do want to touch on a little bit later in the show. But a question coming in from Pokemon. He says, Panthers going to do a complete rebuild during a season? I don't know. You can't prepare for war one piece at a time. I agree. But I do think it's getting to a point where they almost have to blow it up entirely. It's kind of hard not to when you don't have a quarterback in place. The head coaching situation's completely up in the air. They've struggled year after year, season after season, trying to figure out the quarterback spot, and they haven't been able to. So I think a rebuild is definitely in the works for a team that struggled over the last few years.
Exactly.
All right. So the second piece of recent news that I want to touch on is I'm sure as you witnessed, there was some controversy amongst the NFL this weekend, not with head injuries and a guy named Tua Tagovailoa, but roughing the passer. This was a tremendously large topic amongst the NFL over the last couple of days, specifically not only yesterday, but Sunday as well. This is getting out of hand. I think we can all agree that the roughing the passer penalties are so ticky-tacky. They're ridiculous. It's like, just let the guys play the sport. And I was, going to get your thoughts on, what do you think could be the adjustment for this, ongoing penalty that seems to be just ruining the game?
Yeah, they, obviously they got to figure something out. They can't. They're going to be overly cautious now because of the Tua stuff. That was a black eye for the NFL real early into the season already. I worry from a Buffalo perspective because the Bills have been on the quarterback this year. They've been doing an efficient job with their defensive line. Obviously, we know that their numbers, they don't blitz much, but I would hate those types of calls to be on Buffalo, especially going into Kansas City next week, where it could really sway a game. Those guys are real hungry to get after Pat Mahomes. We got Von Miller. We got this shiny new toy this year. Last year's playoffs, the Bills' D-line was really having a hard time keeping an edge against him and containing him. And now we've got Von Miller to do it. And Rousseau, who seems to be turning over this sort of he's kicking this extra gear into himself and really, coming into his own. That makes me nervous. That makes me nervous for the style of defense that Buffalo plays right now and really attacking the quarterback and trying to slow Mahomes down. But as far as the entire league goes, I don't think it's good for anybody. I mean, we all kind of looked at what happened last night and felt for the Chiefs. We don't like the Chiefs, but just the situation. I don't know. It's something that they do need to address. They need to take care of it. But I just think, it wasn't necessarily broken. What happened if what happened in Miami is the result of this? I don't think that necessarily they correlate that closely with each other. Other than maybe, Milano could have. I don't remember if he got flagged on that push. I don't think he did, because it was just a push. But it's not something that they need to go overboard on right now, in my opinion.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, it's so odd. It's almost ironic, the whole situation, with all things considered. The same league that is supposedly prioritizing player safety is letting a guy, return to a football game who is clearly not all right to return, and then playing the following week, and then ending up having to go to the hospital. But at the same time, they have penalties that are being called that are so just petty. So I don't even know what word to use. I mean, they're just so unnecessary, I guess is the best way to put it. It's just both sides of the spectrum that the NFL is playing, and it's just one of the many inconsistencies that this league has to offer. But there's got to be more consistency at the end of the day. But these roughing the passer calls, I mean, both that were called this weekend were pretty game changing. The one with the Bucks and the Falcons, Grady Jarrett brings down Tom Brady in completely legal fashion. And suddenly the Atlanta Falcons have their opportunity to complete the comeback shot in the heart. And then, same thing with Derek Carr and the Kansas City Chiefs. Chris Jones brings down Derek Carr, what looks like in a legal fashion. He goes down, carries all the body weight. Understandably, that's a penalty by rule. But at the end of the day, should that be a rule? Is that how it should be? What else are these guys supposed to do? A couple more comments coming in. I'm more nervous Josh gets pulled off by some spotter who decides he stumbled after a hit. That's also true. I mean, Josh Allen is, he's a tank. He takes hits that a lot of normal quarterbacks or normal players, for that matter, probably couldn't handle. And, especially given the discourse of the season up to this point, any type of hit to the head is going to be carefully evaluated. So, this is a real possibility, not only for Josh, but for anybody going forward. And Pokemon chimes in as well, saying the two worst calls came from the NFL's golden children. Just saying. Yeah, we know how Tom Brady's treated in this league. Am I right? All right, so move on to the third piece of recent news. Some more questionable coaching decisions litter the NFL. Similar to the insanity when it comes to roughing the passer, there's a ton of questionable coaching moves being made. In the midst of a heated spot of an individual football game. We saw this past weekend, the Chargers and the Browns. Brandon Staley went for a 4th and 2 at behind on his own side of the field, only up by 2 points. And the Cleveland Browns had to go maybe 10 yards to make it a 42-yard field goal. And unfortunately, they weren't able to. And Brandon Staley gets to live with his decision without a loss. And then last night, Josh McDaniels goes for 2 with 4.5 minutes left when they're down by 1, and then suddenly they have to have a game-winning drive on their hands. So what do you think when you see these decisions made? How do you feel from a Buffalo Bills fan's perspective? Like, how relieved are you that we don't find ourselves in these situations?
Yeah, there's so much exposure with analytics now, and we can get everything on our phone. We can get these numbers. There's Twitter feeds totally dedicated to real-time situation, what these teams should be doing, and we can scrutinize them in real time to what this 4th down bot is saying this team should be doing, and literally watching the team do it or not do it. And then there's a philosophy and a mindset with NFL coaching too, is are you able to embrace this new style, sort of these numbers that are available and these breakdowns in these analytic departments, or are you a style of coach that's really playing it by feel? I think it has to come together still. You have to play it by feel. You have to understand the analytics. And some coaches get it right and some are getting it wrong. And then you'll have a degree of coaches, obviously, that are more successful in these situations. I feel confident that McDermott has evolved in his time here, because we used to kill him sometimes for clock management or situational management. And then this year, it was pretty nice. Especially against that Ravens game there towards the end. There was some things there. And now the Bills hardly ever punt on 4th down anymore. They have such a high success rate with the offense because the offense is really killing it right now. Again, we don't have Josh Allen. Do they have that same mindset? So, there's a lot of success with execution and players to execute. So you're going to deal with some sort of weakness at some point if you're unsuccessful at your 4th down, 3rd down, situational analytics, things like that. But, at this point, I love having Josh and McDermott. I think Josh is just – there's always that debate when the Bills weren't good. Do we need an offensive line or do we need a quarterback? Our questions are answered with we needed a quarterback, and everything is working out right now.
Yeah, totally. And it makes it so much easier to make these decisions in these big spots for Sean McDermott, I would imagine at least, to decide, we need 2 yards. Well, we have possibly the best player in the NFL to get these 2 yards. So the decision is definitely a lot easier. But I just look at, you hit the nail on the head, especially the way I think when it comes to these certain situations. You got to find this middle ground, this happy medium, maybe even play it game by game where you feel like maybe the analytics are, what you should trust, or maybe you should go by how the game script is treating you. There's a lot of different aspects that I feel like go into it, and just reading it based on the numbers, or just reading it based on how you think your gut is telling you the game is going. There's got to be something in between, right? And I feel like the analytics, I'm not a huge numbers guy, but I'm really coming around on the idea of, analytics being the dominant telling trait of the game. I mean, it's kind of getting hard to dispute at this point. They're very, very extremely important numbers. But at the end of the day, right, you can't be overthinking some of these decisions. Brandon Staley, you're on your own side of the field. You're only up by 2 points. A field goal wins the game. And I mean, the Browns did not, I don't even know if they gained a yard on the drive that, ensued after the Chargers did not pick up the 4th and short. And they still had a solid shot at a field goal to win the game. You kick that deep, the Cleveland Browns don't move the ball at all. They don't have a chance whatsoever. So things like that, it's just, the numbers get inside these coaches' heads so much that I think they overcomplicate things. And, the game is still a very, very simple, I don't want to say guessing game, but they're letting the numbers just take over a little bit too much. And I feel like, numbers are important, but there's a happy medium, like you mentioned. Pokemon says the bad coaching comes directly from the analytics style offense. When you live and die by the numbers, you get called out for it. Analytics don't count the fact Jackson's tired or Marshawn Lynch is gassed. Yeah, exactly. I mean, numbers don't take into consideration some of these external factors that really can't be measured, the immeasurables, like you mentioned, if a player is exhausted, or if a player stumbles on his route, or the possibility of, your center not getting the snap off correctly. I mean, who knows what could go wrong, or what could be determining the outcome of a play. But Pokemon is completely right. And like you mentioned, there is a happy medium between the two. And whether or not you live and die by the numbers, or you're constantly going by your gut, I think you could take it game by game and, often be successful.
Yeah, I'm sure you can see success rates decrease or increase based off of coaches really using the analytics that, were skewed to an NFL style of play, whatever it was last year, or whatever the numbers are basing it off of. And, there might not be enough sample size for certain situations. And you're changing those continuously as you're trying to be successful or end up unsuccessful at this. I don't know. There is this sort of tug of war with me and the numbers too. Like, again, you really got to take the situational management and feel out where you're at, like to the points that were just made in that last comment.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And, like we were both saying, it helps to have a guy like Josh Allen make these decisions very, very straightforward 99.9% of the time. And speaking of the Bills, the final recent news topic I wanted to touch on, of course, has to be the game that just transpired this past weekend. The Bills mutilate the Steelers 38-3. There was not a single chance that the Steelers had from the initial kickoff, despite the fact that Tywan Jones fumbled it. And we had to start at our own 2-yard line. What were some immediate takeaways that you had from this game? Did you, at any point feel worried for one reason or another, or did you see a guy that you liked? What were your thoughts?
Initially, I mean, you come out of that and you're like, Gabe Davis is back. He was hurt. He was super efficient, right? The numbers are out there: 3 catches, what was 176 yards, 2 TDs. You see that Randy Moss clip with how efficient he was, 22 years ago. But you see Gabe's back, right? He did pretty well. One of my big takeaways from it overall is Khalil Shakir and the success that he had. In my opinion, he looked the part in preseason, but he was rest when Gabe was out. He comes in, fills in because they kind of have to put him in there, right? By committee, and he looks great. And I mean, I couldn't have predicted this, right? I'm just, just a guy, I'm just a regular dude. But like, I really felt like he could be a contributor coming into this. So I'm really high on Khalil Shakir. I'm still sort of, wondering about this run game as far as the negatives go with this. Even could somebody like McCaffrey even fix that? I'm not even convinced of that right now. But, that's just, I honestly expected a little more from the Steelers. the Bills defense, wasn't, as sort of ferocious as I really expected them to be. They were still able to move the ball under junk time and sort of prevent, you know what I mean? They were just, Kenny Pickett was, in my opinion, not terrible, but like, he's still a rookie. He saw some things that confused him. And, but I think maybe they have a future with Kenny Pickett. So that's something I'll take away from the Steelers' perspective from that game too. And that Pickens is pretty good too. I like him a lot.
Oh yeah, I mean the Steelers, although this season is looking to be a complete dumpster fire, they have a lot to look forward to. They have a young core that is going to really make this rebuild, if you even want to call it that, very short. George Pickens out wide. Kenny Pickett, like you mentioned, had a pretty decent game. Deontay Johnson, I would assume he's going to be there to stay. They still have TJ Watt. Alex Highsmith has been pretty solid alongside Cam Hayward, Minka Fitzpatrick. They have pieces. I mean, there's really not going to be much of a rebuild had here. And Mike Tomlin, although this probably will be his first losing season in his career, probably. I mean, if he's able to pull a rabbit out of the hat, but I don't think the Steelers are going to lay down and die for too long. But as you mentioned, from a Bills perspective as well, Khalil Shakir, he was a delightful surprise. Even last week, he made a slight impact in limited touches he saw. He made a nice catch along the sideline where he, showcased his feet, keeping, his feet in bounds, dragging the toes. And then this week, we all expected him to be brought onto this offense, maybe not to make an immediate impact, but the impact we thought he would have would be, getting the ball out to him in space, utilizing him maybe behind the line of scrimmage, just trying to get the ball in his hands quick, however we can. But we saw him make that grab up the seam. It was a dart by Josh. He turns around. I want to say it was almost triple coverage. There was at least two guys around him.
There was three defenders in that area for that.
Yeah, there definitely was. And he turns around with I think he's 6 foot. He's not a tremendously large guy. He's a slot receiver. And he puts his hands up and makes a very strong catch in contested coverage. So that's not even something I expected from, I wouldn't even expect that from a veteran slot receiver, let alone a rookie. So that's extremely exciting to be looking forward to. And I thought it was very nice to see James Cook finally get, have a play that can instill some confidence in him. I feel like we haven't really seen him run with much confidence. We know the tool set he harnesses. It's just a matter of him kind of gaining some traction. And I feel like he hasn't gotten that opportunity. So seeing him really flash on that touchdown run near the end of the game was very relieving, a breath of fresh air, probably for him, but for all of us as well, because I think he serves a niche role for this offense that could really come in handy down the road.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. So that will cover the recent events. That'll move us into the underdog of the week category. Do you want to start with your underdog first, Glenn?
Yeah. So I went with the Pittsburgh Steelers playing against the Bucs. They're sort of my underdog of the week. Week 6 coming up is sort of an odd week. Like you've got 2 4-1 teams with the Chiefs and Bills playing against each other. You got a bunch of 2-3, 3-2 matchups going on. I mean, we're still early, right? So like an underdog, I unless you're looking at the Vegas odds or something right in front of you, I mean, you could pick your dog from there. But the Bucs are going to Pittsburgh. Kenny Pickett should come off a little bit confident. And, early in the year, they were able to do some things. They did have Watt. I'll give you that. But, that week 1 when they managed to squeak out a road win against Cincinnati, who kind of looks a little off right now anyway. But, I could see maybe Pittsburgh making that a game, maybe a 1 to 3 point squeak out if they could, really execute and get some touchdowns on special teams and defense also.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate this pick at all. You look at the slate, and that's of course one of the games that pop out as a lock from a Tampa Bay perspective. But given the parity in the league up to this point over the last 2 seasons, we've seen upset after upset. The Pittsburgh Steelers are, I would consider, infamous for upsetting teams that they probably shouldn't be beating. I mean, they took down the Bengals at the beginning of the year. Nobody expected that. They took down us. They took down Buffalo at the beginning of last season. Like, they do this more often than some other teams do. And on top of the fact that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers don't look great right now, their defense looks solid, but Tom Brady's having a hard time moving the ball down the field. I don't know if it's because of the personal struggles that he's having at the moment, or if he's just, the age is showing. Nevertheless, the Bucks haven't looked fantastic. They haven't looked unbeatable. And now the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be hosting them. And, if their defense is able to show out and, give Tom Brady some issues, this game could easily go in favor of the Steelers, or at least be extremely close. And we almost saw the Falcons complete a comeback this past week. They were down 21 points and they scored 15, and they were about to make a defensive stop to get the ball back. And, suddenly the roughing the passer happened. So who knows how that could have played out. But the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are not immune to the whole idea of being upset, especially by a team like the Steelers. And my underdog pick on that note is going to be not as spicy as yours was, Glenn, but I'm going to take Miami over Minnesota. Let me pull it up right here. Miami is at home. I assume Teddy Bridgewater is going to be out of protocol at this point. I don't think we'll see Tua for at least 2 or 3 weeks. Who knows when we'll see Tua again. Hopefully he's doing all right. But nevertheless, the Minnesota Vikings are 4-1. I don't think they've had four convincing victories, in my opinion.
Right.
They beat the Chicago Bears last week, 28-22, but the Bears were slowly inching their way back in this game. Kirk Cousins was like 17 for 17 in the first half for like 200 yards, and then suddenly the dude can't move the ball down the field in the second half, and the Chicago Bears are inching their way back. Why in God's name couldn't Teddy Bridgewater take Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, and, take down the 4-1 Minnesota Vikings on their own home field? I think it's very possible. And the Vikings barely beat the Saints 2 weeks ago. The Saints had Andy Dalton under center. They were missing Michael Thomas. Chris Olave was pretty much their only option. Alvin Kamara wasn't playing. They have squeaked away with victories, and they haven't looked too great, in my opinion, despite the record. So I think the Miami Dolphins, despite being underdogs without their starting quarterback, have a very solid shot against what I would consider a fraudulent, maybe that's a strong word, Minnesota Vikings team.
There's always a few teams at the beginning of every year. They've got, 4-1, 5-0, and they've got a lot more wins in the beginning of the year than they probably will end up with on the back half of the year. And we like to romance over those teams. The Bills used to do it to us all the time, and end up 6-10. So, it's just one of those things, I guess. And I think Minnesota is probably one of those teams, but who knows right now? They could win, they could win that division with what's going on over there. And the Packers kind of look discombobulated a little bit too. Aaron Rodgers just seems a little confused out there. Maybe he's not confused, but he looks off, right? I don't know. But I don't know. We'll see. Maybe the Vikings squeeze that thing out. I don't know.
Yeah, I really, honestly, I don't either. Last week, unfortunately, I didn't have the Cave last week, but last week my pick would have been the Lions. They were somehow underdogs to the Patriots, and we all saw why. Apparently, they were averaging 30-something points per game, and then all of a sudden, Bill Belichick's genius shuts them out. I don't understand how. I don't know. I don't know how that happened. I couldn't believe my eyes when I was witnessing Jared Goff, who looked like the next coming of Dan Marino, throwing to Amon-Ra St. Brown, TJ Hawkinson. They're putting up points galore, and suddenly they get shut out. It was the most Lions thing I've ever seen, if I'm being honest. And this week, hopefully my underdog pick will be a little bit more spot on. But nevertheless, let's move into the next segment, of course. This is going to be the Q&A segment. This is where everybody in the comments, be sure to get your questions in. Of course, we're answering them as we go. But if you have a question that you want to fit, whether it's Bills related or not, be sure you're throwing it in the comments, and we will be sure to touch on it. But I have a question to start off the Q&A for you, Glenn, which is going to be this. Should the Cowboys continue to start Cooper Rush even after Dak Prescott is ready?
I'm going to go with no. I think when Dak is ready, you give him the game. If Dak wins the game and, he looks good winning that game, yes. If he loses that game, I think it's up for debate at that point. He's got the Cowboys, man, in a good spot right now, 4-1. It's funny with the Cowboys, too, because, they'll find something like this, and then all their fans think they're going to the Super Bowl, and then they start throwing money at them, or they want to get rid of Dak so quickly. It's like, I say you give Dak. You paid Dak. Dak had that respect to that team, from my opinion. If he comes back healthy, or when he comes back healthy, you give him, the opportunity to take his team back. And then if it's just not going well, you go back to Cooper Rush. You don't give it long, but that way you can continue to keep this pace.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, people often forget that, those are the folks out there that think that Cooper Rush should remain the starter. People forget that Dak Prescott led the highest scoring offense in football last year. I think in
Exactly.
2021 or in 2020, I'm sorry, he was on pace to lead the team or lead the NFL in, the highest scoring offense once again. I mean, he's put this team on his back many times before. If it weren't for that ankle injury, he would have done it 2 years in a row, in my opinion. And now this defense is really what's getting the job done at this point. Cooper Rush is just, he's being smart. Honestly, he's a very calculated quarterback. He knows how to read the field at an advanced level. And it helps that the defense is playing out of their minds. Dan Quinn is doing a tremendous job with the way he's utilizing Micah Parsons. Trayvon Diggs has really elevated his game after all of the shit he took this offseason. He's looked good. That defense is really what's keeping that team not only afloat, but really as dominant as they've been. And as long as Cooper Rush isn't turning the ball over, it's kind of an easy bread and butter. But you add Dak Prescott to that conversation, and suddenly this is a team that has a defense that's going to shut you down maybe 60% of the game, and an offense that's going to shove points down your throat. They're going to be a tough squad to beat. And who knows if this is actually the year where they're going to make some, genuine noise, because that seems to be the story with them every season. But it's looking like their defense is really pulling some weight, which I feel like has been kind of the issue over the last couple of years. So I'm really interested to see how things play out for the Cowboys, especially when Dak returns.
Yeah, they're always an interesting story, right?
Yeah, they always start off. They always seem to be one of the better teams, and then they always phase out. It's the same. It's the same story with the Cowboys, similar to the Vikings. I feel like the Vikings and the Cowboys fit this narrative of two teams that they get all this hype in the preseason, and then they start to play somewhat decent throughout the regular season, and everybody's freaking out. They're going to win their division. They're going to do this. They're going to do that, and they all fall short every single time. Vikings will miss the playoffs, go 8-9. Kirk Cousins will look great statistically, but for some reason, they're just not a good team. And then Dak Prescott's leading the highest scoring offense in football, blah, blah, blah. They always fall short. I wonder if both of them will again. I kind of am interested after these 4-1 starts if they will fizzle out like they usually would have. But number two, my question is, and this is why I wanted to save the Christian McCaffrey talk for earlier, but would you trade for Christian McCaffrey if you were the general manager of the Buffalo Bills?
I mean, sure, if it worked, right? If it made sense. I mean, you've seen like second rounder thrown out there. My concern, I guess, isn't more so with who's that running back, but why the Bills are having such a hard time running. Yeah. They broke a few, against Miami. There was, Singletary's had a few, but they rely a lot on Josh, and Josh gets it done, but he's got to, at some point, not get it done so much because somebody else can. Christian McCaffrey, he has a lot of the potential. He's a sexy name, right? But he's injury prone. He, could be a good fit for Buffalo. He could be another gadget player for Buffalo. I think if the price was right for it, he's cheap this year too. I think I read $600K or something, but next year he gets expensive. If he's an asset that could help the Bills get over the top, I think, second, third round or something like that. Go ahead and I'd say just do it. But the Bills also draft so well that like those aren't just like wash picks anymore.
Right.
It's like they could literally draft a second rounder that's going to start day one, like the Benford pick this year, and we got Elam, and I mean it's just literally you could draft somebody that's going to start day one with that. Is that what you want to do to the team? Is that you think McCaffrey is going to, if you have evaluated him, Brandon Beane, to the point where you think he could be that extra, we've already called Von Miller the icing on the cake, but that extra sort of puts you over the top. Let's go win a championship in 22. Because all I need is one, please, just one. Then go ahead and go for it because, like, I'm sold. Let's just get one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you, man. We saw the Los Angeles Rams pull it out last year. They did the all-in tactic, and they were all in. They had every chip they could have found in that organization, pushed to the middle of the table, and it paid off. And I don't know if I'm a fan of it, but I respect the way they attacked their situation. They traded for Matthew Stafford. They still had Aaron Donald playing at the peak of his game. You of course got Cooper Kupp, who is going berserk. They really went all out. They bring in Odell Beckham Jr., Jalen Ramsey's there. Von Miller was there at the time. They did everything they possibly could, and it paid off. And at the end of the day, you are supposed to go out and win championships. And if that's what's going to get the job done, then, in my opinion, at least, forget the future. Go and win now if the opportunity is there. And Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott, this organization as a whole, if they feel like you mentioned, Christian McCaffrey is that piece, I wholeheartedly believe that they know what they're talking about, and they know that this is truly what is going to push us over that hump. But like you said too, these draft picks that were would be hypothetically getting traded away are not garbage. I mean, these are valuable selections. You mentioned it. Christian Benford, Kyer Elam, Khalil Shakir is another perfect example, and he's making an early impact. And this has been an ongoing theme with draft picks for the Buffalo Bills over the last few years. And when you trade for a guy like Christian McCaffrey, you're kind of not going to not give him the ball, if you will. Like, you don't trade for him and then all of a sudden you're using him like every fifth down. You want to get the ball in the hands of a guy like that, especially if you're paying relatively higher compensation for him. And do you really want to change your offense that much? Do you really want to relegate a role that Devin Singletary is serving, or relegate the role that James Cook would be serving? This is, it really would change a lot of the dynamic on this football team. And I did see a report that said that the Bills did kick the tires on him, but then I saw a report after the fact saying that they didn't. So I don't know what to believe. I don't know if something is smoke and something isn't, but I think it's probably safer to say that Christian McCaffrey won't be a Buffalo Bill once the fire sale is over in Carolina. But it's a fun thought. I can't lie. Pokemon says CMC won't run the rock 30 times a game. He would stay healthy, but I don't want to trade any player for him, though. Other than Moss, everyone on the Bills, I think, is better. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say everyone on the Bills is better. As far as running backs go, I think he would absolutely be the best guy, but I don't think he's worth, switching up the dynamic that we have going on in that offense.
Yep.
And the third question that I have for you is going to be, oh, wait a minute. We got a question from Pokemon. Is CMC any good as a blocker? Because I think Allen could use help from a blocking running back. He is, obviously he's not the most physical guy, but he gets the job done. He's an every down back. He's one of the few every down backs left in the NFL. So yeah, I don't think he's one of the best pass blocking running backs in the NFL. I'm not sure what the metrics say. But he's an every down back for a reason. If he really wasn't able to do it, he wouldn't be out there on third down. So he definitely fits the mold as far as pass blocking back goes.
There's numbers out there too that suggest that show that Allen is highly effective and efficient against the blitz too. So whoever it is that might be back there blocking, Josh Allen is really efficient against the blitz. If they're only rushing 4 in the offensive line, your running back typically isn't going to stay back and wait for somebody to penetrate that offensive line anyway. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, maybe so, but I think as far as pass blocking, he'd be more weaponized than, he'd be utilized, if they saw some sort of something out of the defense Josh saw and left him back there for coverage. But I think he would be more of a weapon than that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think pass blocking would be probably not the role he'd be serving, but he certainly can do it, I guess, in the scenario he had to find himself in. But nevertheless, I don't think Christian McCaffrey in a Bills jersey is going to be happening. And for my third question, moving on, we were kind of talking about 4-1 teams earlier that could be fraudulent, could be the truth. Well, there's one that is deservingly under the microscope. Brian Dable's New York Giants are currently 4-1. They just took down the Green Bay Packers in London, and my jaw is still on the floor after watching the conclusion of that game. Are the Giants for real after their 4-1 start to the 2022 season?
I honestly don't know right now. I saw something that compared them. Oh, this is a snippet I saw. Are they the new Titans? You know what I mean? The Titans, Tannehill, great running back, defense, and offensive line, and Belichick tree, even though, Dable is ours. I think he's the McDermott tree now. But, could they be? I need to see more, honestly. That division looks pretty stout. That division is what we thought the AFC West was going to be to this point. And, that you've got this Giants team that are just high energy. How could, aside from Super Bowl 25, how could you not root for them right now, right? They're the Bills East. And then, with the Cowboys doing their thing with a backup quarterback and Eagles 5-0. I didn't expect a 5-0 Eagles team, which Cowboys play the Eagles this week. That's a big matchup. That should be pretty fun to watch, hopefully. Are they for real? I really can't answer that right now. I have no idea, but they're fun. I think it's cool to watch them like, oh, they won again. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, they're fun. That's a very good way to put it. They're shocking people left and right. I do pick'ems every week, and they're screwing me big time. Every week I pick against them, and they keep winning. And I'm probably going to continue to pick against them. I just can't help it. Just something in my heart is telling me that there's just no way they should be winning football games. I mean, they beat Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers, despite the fact that the Packers don't have a fantastic offense themselves, with Daniel Jones. And I mean, they have practice squad receivers running routes for them. I could not believe when I was looking at the score at the end of this game. I was dumbfounded that they were able to move the ball on that Packers defense with pretty much Saquon Barkley to do it. I mean, it was literally Barkley or bust, it felt like, but Daniel Jones is getting the job done, and good for him. I like Daniel Jones. He's a fighter. He's got a ton of heart. He's athletic, and I know there's a lot of conversation this offseason that if Daniel Jones has any opportunity, it would be with Brian Dable, because he's utilized and weaponized athletic quarterbacks in the past, aka Josh Allen. And it seems like there's rejuvenation. Who knows? The Giants, I feel like, could still end up with a maximum of 6 wins by the end of the year.
Sure.
But I mean, like you said, who knows anymore? The parity in this league is off the charts, and the fact that they're 4-1 and just took down the Packers, it's not looking great for the believers of the fraudulent Giants, at least as of right now.
Yeah, Barkley's looking good. He's having some sort of, this little bit of the comeback player of the year type vibe to him. Yeah. And Daniel Jones is like the great value Josh Allen out there in New York. They're kind of utilizing him that way a little bit too, running these bootlegs and these options. They're kind of playing with them a little bit. And I saw it even ran, I think, some Wildcat this weekend too. Direct snaps to Barkley. And I don't know, like I said, they're just fun. Dable's doing kind of what he did in Buffalo, just he's got like a lesser value or lesser talent at the positions other than Barkley. He's probably the best running back he's had in the last 5 years or so.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say Barkley's playing like, aside, next to Nick Chubb, the best running back in the NFL right now. And I would make the argument that Barkley is better just because he's a lot more involved in the receiving game, and what he's able to do on every down for the Giants is kind of invaluable. And if Daniel Jones didn't have him in the backfield, I don't think the Giants are 4-1 at the moment. Saquon Barkley really is the motor to the train that is driving this Giants team to 4-1 at the moment. But I have a couple other comments that I wanted to touch on. Carson, thank you for popping in, man. Happy to see you. He's a Washington fan, and he says, not that it matters for my trash Commanders, but I want to see if the NFC East plays some real teams. Our records are bloated because we play against the AFC South and NFC North. I was interested, speaking of the Commanders, I don't know if you saw the comment that Ron Rivera made, about why his team is struggling right now in comparison to the rest of the NFC East, and he just says quarterback. He pretty much blames Carson Wentz outright, throws him right under the bus. Granted, he apologized. He kind of, he reflected on his decision to say such a thing, but he obviously feels the way he does. And the Commanders are sitting there at what I believe are they 1-4, 2-3? A team that I thought had a ton of promise a couple of years ago, getting Ryan Fitzpatrick. Antonio Gibson was looking like one of the better backs in the NFL. Their defensive front was probably the best in the NFL at that time, between Chase Young, Montez Sweat, Deron Payne, I believe, was still there, if he isn't still there. That line, that defense was looking fantastic, and they just haven't been able to pick up where they left off between all the injuries that they've suffered over the last couple of years. But Ron Rivera, in my opinion, he's not doing his team, many favors either. I don't think there's, anything he's done that's made this team jump off the page. I don't think Carson Wentz is, to be relieved of all blame. But how can you put all the blame on him when, I don't know, that defense is just a shell of what it should be? And Carson Wentz is your bridge quarterback that you've thrown in a situation behind an offensive line where he's getting thrown to the wolves every game. So, blame
Wentz is
Carson Wentz.
fifth in yards too right now for quarterbacks. So,
Yeah.
he's got a little bit going on.
Yeah, I mean, the first few weeks he was slinging. Carson Wentz was really killing it the first couple of weeks, and then the offensive line woes really started to catch up. But Ron Rivera, I think his better days are in the past. I really wonder how much longer he lasts as a head coach in the NFL, as given the last few years he's been with the Commanders and they haven't found a plethora of success. They're another team that I kind of lump with the Panthers, where they keep taking the bridge quarterback route, in hopes that, they spark some kind of fire that they can make some sort of deeper run in the NFC, and it's just not working. I mean, unfortunately, I think was it Matt Corral that got hurt? I can't remember, but they're not doing the full rebuild thing yet, and I feel like it's getting to a time where it's certainly around the corner, just like the Pittsburgh Steelers are somewhat going through. The Panthers are just getting kickstarted. I think the Commanders are probably right in line.
I read something that if Frazier gets a head coaching job somewhere, you could see Rivera end up making a move over to Buffalo and try to rebranding himself with that defense. And another team that's kind of doing what you're saying, the Indianapolis Colts. They keep picking up, these quarterbacks and trying to plug them in and, trying to be the Denver Broncos of 2015 or whatever that year was with Peyton Manning. But,
the Colts are I would consider the Colts an anomaly. I mean, I thought they were going to be one of the better teams in the AFC as a whole this season. Forget their division. I thought they were going to be dangerous, and their offensive line looks like a shell of its former self. They have no depth at receiver. Matt Ryan standing behind, looking like a statue when these pass rushers are coming at him. And, when his receivers aren't getting any separation, Michael Pittman and Alec Pierce, I think they missed a couple of weeks ago. Both of them collectively, and the dude was left out there to dry. And now Jonathan Taylor's missing time. That defense hasn't looked great because Shaquille Leonard's been out. I mean, the fact that they beat the Broncos, I don't know if you saw that Thursday night game between the Broncos and the Colts. That was the best football game I have ever watched. It was so exciting. Those last 10 minutes or so, it was.
Yeah. I couldn't look away. I watched the game. It was like a car accident. I just, I was like, they're just beating themselves. The overthrown balls, the Colts picked it off, and the guy I made a joke that he tackled himself at midfield. Nobody touched him; he just went down. I'm just like, nobody wants to win this game. It's terrible. This thing's 9-9 right now. I can't believe that this is what they're giving us. The Thursday night games used to have this, they still kind of are getting this again, where they were terrible. They're just giving us this terrible slate. Flex every game. Keep your week one stuff. Make every game available for flex. They'll never do that, but
Yeah, I mean that was a very good way to put it. I watched that game like I was watching a car accident. You just can't look away. You're totally right. And I would say, at least for the sake of the comparison, there were multiple car accidents in that game between Russell Wilson throwing the pick when they're up by a few points or going to be up by a few points. No, they were up 12-9 at that point. He throws to the end zone against Stephon Gilmore. That was a complete blunder. The Colts player slipping on the interception, which probably would have been their best chance for a touchdown all game. There were just so many different instances where both quarterbacks, you're looking at like, what are you doing? What are you thinking? That's not open. That was never going to be open. Why are you throwing the ball there? Richard Sherman had a field day on the post-game press conference because of the flashbacks he was getting from Russell throwing a ball to a spot where he probably should have been running it. But, man, I mean, the Denver Broncos and the Indianapolis Colts collectively are two of the biggest letdowns, disappointments that, that we've seen going to this year. And I would say both of those coaches, deservingly so, are probably under the heavy microscope, at this point, too, after the Matt Rule firing.
Yeah, Russell Wilson has the you either die a hero or you live long enough to become the villain. He is vilified right now. He is the league's. Nobody can buy into his sort of gimmicks and his persona. It's wild.
Yeah, it is. And he's getting slandered to the highest capacity. I don't know if you saw the Kyle Brandt rant that he went on, but he ripped into Russell Wilson. Not only how he played, but just his personality, his character.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, I don't even know if Kyle Brandt knows him that way, but my Lord, that was bad. I thought, but All right, so let's move on. We got 2 more segments remaining. We're going to touch on my power rankings for the week. So, long story short, I got my power rankings after week number 5, and I just want you to give me your thoughts on them. Pretty straightforward. I've been making like a fancy graphic for these, but it's just too hard. So I did one of these.
Okay.
And this is what I got. Bills at number 1. I mean, I don't know. The top 3 I feel like is somewhat interchangeable. The Bucks,
Right.
I'm having a hard time keeping out of my top 5, despite the fact that they haven't looked good. 49ers have been rolling lately. The Rams are dropping out. What are you thinking here?
Taking a look. I mean, this looks honestly straightforward. I mean, I don't see. Let me see where you got the Jets here. The Jets are kind of funny to me right now. I don't think they're a good team by any means, but looking at all these, like the Jets, who are kind of like trying to fight and they're being scrappy, and the Giants being 4-1. Do they go a little higher up on a ranking scale? But what you said for the interchangeable top 3, it's kind of there. The Eagles being 5-0 is a little bit respectable in regards to, it's tough to become 5-0. I don't care who you are. You're executing, you're playing well, and if we're doing rankings, I think we are going literally by today, Tuesday, October 11th, and what do we have? We've got the Eagles at 5-0, Bills. I mean, we can say, yeah, they should be 5, but they're 4-1. Chiefs are 4-1. I think against a Raiders team last night, they didn't look convincingly like the number 1 team to me. Man, the Raiders did some things against them that the Raiders couldn't really do all year. Hoping the Bills can have some of that similar success. Just got to, they got to convince the Chiefs that their run game is worth, what the Steelers did with Gabe Davis and kind of give us that opportunity to beat them over top. But I think, I don't have anything against your ranking system or a problem with that. Like you said, with 1 through 3 being flexible, I can agree with that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I have a hard time doing these on a week-to-week basis. The insanity that occurs every single week. I try to keep it sensible. Like I don't know. I sit here telling myself that the Eagles are 5-0, and like you mentioned, that's hard to do. So they probably deserve to be at number 1. But then I'm thinking to myself, like, if they played the Bills, are they beating the Bills? I mean, bias aside, is Josh Allen losing to Jalen Hurts? Is that pass rush too much for Josh Allen? Because I know the Eagles have a good front 7. Would our defense be too much for Jalen Hurts? Because who knows what he's kind of, the value of the quality of defensive fronts that he's played up to this point. There's so many different factors that run through my head, and I feel like you kind of got to stay consistent with the way you do things. So I try to keep my power rankings every week based off of the scale of not necessarily record, but how I feel like they've played and how dominant they've looked, and what their roster has come together like, if you will. So a lot of different factors play into this. I almost feel like it's pointless at some points, but nevertheless, I try my best, and I'm glad it's not the most egregious thing you've ever seen. Carson says that the Commanders are too high. Where did I have the Commanders? I had the Commanders at 24. Man, you are really being harsh on your Commanders right now, Carson. That's funny. All right, so that will bring us into the final segment of the show. This is the most anticipated segment that I offer on the Cave. And Glenn, are you nervous? This is the Caveman's quiz game.
My hands are sweating. Let's do it.
All right, so if you're not familiar with how the Caveman's quiz game works, it's pretty straightforward. Long story short, you're going to get 5 quiz questions, one being an off-season events question, one being your stats, history, draft, and awards question. Each question, you'll have the option to choose the easy, medium, or the hard. Easy equals 10 points, 20 equals medium, and 30 equals hard. There's a true-false follow-up question if you get the question correct. That will be worth half of the original question. You get 1 mulligan per game that you can hold on to the very end, and you can use on whatever question you want. But quick disclaimer with the mulligan: if you use your mulligan on, let's say, the history question, but you already chose like the medium history question, only the easy and the hard one will be left, if that makes sense. And there's one final wager question at the end of it, which is basically your final Jeopardy. All right, so this is what the leaderboard is looking like, Glenn. You are going to be chasing judge, Steve. He put up 210 points a couple weeks ago.
right.
He killed it. There was some constant lead changes. Dan came on. He broke the top. Dave took it. Dan took it. Waited a week or two. Drew took it. And then Judge came on and smashed it. So what do you think? You confident? You think you're good at trivia? What's the outlook in your opinion for yourself?
I don't know that I'm good at trivia. I'm good at some things when it comes to some odd general knowledge. But, I'm ready for this gauntlet. Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Best of luck to you, Glenn. So we got the first question being the off-season events question. Would you like to take the easy, the medium, or the hard?
Off-season events. Is it this season?
Yeah, this past off-season.
Let's go with medium.
All right, he's going to take the medium right off the bat. The medium off-season events question is, where did former Cowboys offensive lineman La'el Collins sign this offseason?
I should have taken the hard. Cincinnati Bengals.
Cincinnati Bengals is correct. That will be 20 points on the board. I have a hard time determining question difficulty, man. I got to tell you. I don't know. I'll get into that a little bit later. But nevertheless, 20 points on the board. Solid start. The true-false follow-up is going to be this. La'el had only been with Dallas since he was drafted in 2015.
That would be totally 50-50 guess here. I'm going with false.
He has only been with Dallas. He got drafted by Dallas in 2015, and he was drafted out of LSU, I believe. I don't remember. I was reading about it earlier. He apparently fell out of the first round. I didn't read up why, but yes, he's been with Dallas. But nevertheless, 20 points on the board. Pretty solid start. Question number 2. Do you want to take the easy, the medium, or the hard? This is the stats question.
Let's go with, do I lose points if I get it wrong?
Nope.
Oh, let's go with the hard.
All right, he's going to take the hard question. The hard stats question is this. Last season, which team led the NFL in pass attempts on RPOs?
Man, that would be really okay.
There's no time limit, so if you want to take some time to ponder.
Let's go with RPOs. I'm going to go with the Buccaneers. Tom Brady loves them some, but
it was not the Bucs. It was not the Buccaneers. It was a good guess, but it was not the Buccaneers. It was the Miami Dolphins actually led the NFL in pass attempts on RPOs. They had 111 leading the league last season. Tua needs his run pass option to distribute the ball. We all know he's not the greatest slinger of the pigskin when he has to really drop back, but the Dolphins are the leaders there. You have the opportunity to use your mulligan if you want, or you can save it and then decide to use it somewhere else. But that's completely up to you. All right, so we're going to move on. All right, so let's move right on to the third question. This is going to be the history question. Do you want the easy, the medium, or the hard?
Let's go with medium.
All right, he's going back to the medium. History medium is Gabe Davis's 98-yard touchdown ties who for the longest touchdown reception in Bills franchise history?
T.O.?
Correct. Terrell Owens is the right answer. That's 20 more points. He did have a 98-yard touchdown, but before we elaborate into that, the true-false follow-up is going to be this. Kyle Orton threw the touchdown pass to Terrell Owens. True or false?
That was Ryan Fitzpatrick.
You are correct. It would be false. Ryan Fitzpatrick did throw that pass. It's another 10 points. That moves you up to 50 points on the game so far. So you're 3 questions in. You have 50 points. You're on a roll right now. There have been plenty worse starts on this show, let me tell you. All right, so that moves us on to the fourth question. This is the draft question. Do you want the easy, the medium, or the hard?
Let's go with the medium again.
He's going with the medium. The draft medium is, which team drafted defensive end George Karlaftis out of Purdue in the 2022 NFL draft?
George Karlaftis out of Purdue. I should have went. I don't know. Let's go Chicago Bears. I don't know.
It was not the Chicago Bears. It was the Kansas City Chiefs. They took George Karlaftis at 30th.
Of course.
30th overall. Yeah, of course it was the Chiefs, right? But it was George Karlaftis to the Kansas City Chiefs. You have the mulligan if you want to go back to the draft.
That's all right. I'm kicking myself for that one.
No worries. Like I said, you do have a mulligan. You have an opportunity. 50 points on the board. You still have a bit of game remaining here to make up for it. So question number 5 is the awards question. This is the final question, but then you do have your mulligan as well as the wager question. So do you want the easy, the medium, or the hard awards question?
Let's go with hard.
All right, he's shooting for the stars. The hard award question is, who is the last player to win MVP and Offensive Player of the Year in the same season?
Pat Mahomes.
You're right. It was Patrick Mahomes in 2018. Patrick Mahomes was the last. Wait, I'm not going to finish that statement. But Patrick Mahomes is the last player to win Offensive Player of the Year and MVP in the same season. All right, so that will move you up to that was 30 points. So that's a big one. The true false follow-up is going to be this. All right. The true false follow-up is Tom Brady also did it.
True.
You're right. It is true. Tom Brady did win NFL MVP and Offensive Player of the Year. So you are correct. That will move you to, oh man, I got to do math. I have a very bad track record of doing math on this show. It's really bad. Like after the fact, they'll be like, holy shit, I did my math wrong on the show. Like that's really bad. So we'll go back and backtrack real quick. So you got 20 on the first one. You got 0 on the second with the statistical question. That was the RPOs. The third question with the history, you did get correct with the Terrell Owens answer. The draft you missed with the George Karlaftis, and then the fifth question you did get 30 and 15. So you are now up to 45 plus.
Did you count the Ryan Fitzpatrick true or false too in there for the TL
Yeah.
one? Okay.
Yep. So you got 30 points on that one. 20 plus 45, 75. All right, you have 95 points on the board right now. So you have a mulligan. What category do you want to run back to?
Let's do which other one did I get wrong? Not the draft one. I am not good with the draft stuff. That's my brother.
You got the stats one wrong.
Let's do the stats one.
All right. Do you want to do the easy or the hard?
Let's just go for the hard.
Or wait, you had the hard one. Do you want the easy or the medium? You took the RPOs.
Or excuse me, let's do medium then.
All right. The medium question for the stats is, what is the most common record in the NFL after 5 weeks?
Win-loss record?
Yeah.
For this year or total?
For this season.
Oh man, it's either 2 or 3 and 3 or 2. Let's do 3 and 2.
It's 2 and 3. You were right. It was a coin flip. It was 2 and 3. 2 and 3, I think, has like 9 or 10 teams, and 3 and 2, I think, has 7 or 8. But it was 2 and 3. You were right. The second I said this season, it's either 3 and 2 or 2 and 3. Unfortunately, the coin flip fell short. But you're right. It was one of the two. But that's all right. You have 95 points to play with in the wager question. Do you want to play it safe, conservative? Here's what the leaderboard is looking like. Just for a reminder, I don't think you'll unfortunately be able to catch Judge, but if my math checks out, I think you would be able to take second if you did hypothetically wager it all.
Well, let's go for it. Come on.
All right, he's got to wager it all. So 95 points going on the wager question, trying to shoot for second place. This would be huge. So 95 points would put you in second over Drew, I believe, was the holder. So the wager question for 95 points for second place is going to be this. Who currently holds the single season passing yards record in NFL history for 95 points?
Single season passing yards record goes to Tom Brady.
It's not Tom Brady, unfortunately. It's Peyton Manning by a yard. Peyton Manning has it by a yard. He has, I have it written down. Peyton Manning has 5,477 passing yards in 2013. Drew Brees, I think it was 2015. Manning did it. I think Drew Brees had 5,476 in 2013 or something of the sort, 2012. It was literally a yard difference between the two, but it was
Peyton Manning crossed my mind for a split second. I'm like, that kid, it's too long ago, it feels like. Yeah. I feel like we were just celebrating Drew Brees and then Tom Brady, but all those were all-time records. But, touchdowns and, yeah.
No, I respect the effort. I respect the willingness to put it all on the line and go for second place, because you were right there for being. I mean, it was either second or bust. I mean, I respect the shit out of that. That was as close as it's going to get. It was either probably Brady, Manning, or Breeze in your mind, right? I assume those were probably the three guys that flashed at one point or another. And Pokemon said Manning P. Yep, it was Manning. But yeah, that will wrap up the quiz game, and that will wrap up the show. Thank you very much for hopping on, Glenn. We've covered a lot of ground tonight, and I appreciate you, taking the time to join me on this fine Tuesday night.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really had a blast. I had a fun time with you. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it, man. I really hope you did. And for anybody that did hop in the comment section that viewed, subscribed, liked, whatever you might have done, I appreciate you tremendously. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you're checking out Glenn on his website. Make sure you're checking out Buffalo on the Brain down in the description. Make sure you're following him on Twitter and all of his respective socials, which I do have down in the description. Make sure you're checking out The Cave every single Tuesday at 8 p.m. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you're checking us out next week. Go Bills.